Welcome back to episode 2 of the Marty&Party podcast with special guest Dow Dow. We have a great episode for you. To my left is Pat,
What up?
and my right is the one and only Dow Dow,
Hello.
returning once again for his second week in a row, which I believe is a record on our show. We have a lot to dive into today. We're going to talk about some NFL officiating. We're going to talk a little about the Titans Bengals recap and go a little more in depth about where the team is going this season. And if we see any issues, which I guess I already gave up, we do see some issues. And then we're going to go a little further into the Steelers, their impressive win against the Ravens. I don't know why it was considered an upset by some, but Vegas had it as an upset. We didn't. And finally, we're going to talk about our best bets for the upcoming week and review our bets for last week, where we went 2-0 on our best bets. We missed our upset of the week, but anytime you can go 2-0 on even money, there's a lot to be proud of, and you can't be upset with yourself. So stay tuned and hope you guys enjoy another really great episode.
It's the Marty&Party podcast, presented by 4011 Sports.
So the NFL officiating through the first 7 weeks I thought was pretty good. I couldn't make many complaints, maybe a holding call here or there. But last week I think they all got together and decided to put together probably the worst performance I've seen in 2 years. I'm going to start with our upset week game with the Cowboys when Ben DiNucci fumbles it. And I know it was clearly recovered by Philadelphia. But how you don't blow the play dead when the offensive lineman or the defensive lineman's laying on the ground with the ball, but you allow it to get punched out and then ran back for a touchdown by the Eagles, and then nobody even reviews it. It was an absolute outrageous call going around the room. I know a lot of the other guys here saw some calls that we'd like to talk about that, looking back on it, it's just kind of funny, but also very pathetic.
Absolutely pathetic. Another NFC East team got absolutely screwed by the officials. New York Giants. One I can distinctly remember is Cameron Brate lowering the crown of his helmet, absolutely bolting a defensive back, and then the officials come walking in. They're like, unnecessary roughness defense. Put the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the 5. Absolutely embarrassing. And then you have the 2-point conversion after a beautiful throw by Danny Dimes in the back of the end zone to Golden Tate. I understand why they picked up the flag, but if you throw the flag in the first place, you gotta keep it. The man wasn't looking at the ball. It hits him in the back. It's clearly pass interference in the rules of today. It's embarrassing.
Side note, why are we calling him Danny Dimes? I'm going to pass it on to Brian now.
Yeah, I mean, he's not Danny Dimes. He did have a great throw to, he did throw a dime to Golden Tate in the back of the end zone, but that throw on the 2-point conversion, that was behind his receiver. He was late on that throw. He was not trying to anticipate it at all. So, I don't have an issue with the ref picking up that flag. I'm fine with it. But what really bothered me this week was the play against the Titans. So Adam Humphries gets knocked out cold. He's out on the ground. And you know what the refs do? They have the audacity to go back, look at this play again, call it an incompletion after watching Adam Humphries get his head separated from his body no more than 7 times over on replay. After looking at it for over a minute, they said, yeah, incomplete. Nothing about it. What makes it even worse is on the very next drive. A very similar call, not nearly as bad as the hit on Adam Humphries, was called against the Titans. Exact same thing. If we need accountability in the NFL, we need more transparency, we need to hold officials accountable. And, as Matt was saying, they have been good up until this point, but I need consistency.
Yeah, that hit that Vaccaro had that you're referencing to, I thought was a little ridiculous that they called it a penalty. It almost looked like he made contact with the guy's head with his forearms. And we're not even mentioning the most egregious call of the day on the Jaylen Brown interception, a phantom pass interference call um, by Malcolm Butler that might have, flipped the switch on the team and basically put the nail in the coffin for the Titans, giving a first down instead of starting a Titans drive inside the 20 with 3 minutes left in the game. Absolutely miserable officiating by the referees this week, and I hope we don't make a trend of it. But moving forward, the Tennessee Titans this week with their loss to the Bengals, I guess halfway through the game I started really thinking that there's some serious issues on this team that we might have been ignoring as fans, and I think a lot of NFL pundits were ignoring as well because of the team's record. But a question I want to pose to you, the other boys in the room, is what's the difference right now between the Tennessee Titans and the Dallas Cowboys when Dak Prescott was still healthy? Besides the record, obviously, I am struggling to see anything.
Yeah, both team defenses have been awful this season. For the Bengals-Titans game, each team had 27 first downs, but the Titans had time of possession were down 11 minutes to the Bengals. They gave up 10 out of 15 third down conversions to the Bengals. They also had 4 others that were first downs via penalties. Now, whether or not some of these penalties were correct, regardless, the defense needs to step up. Pass rush has been abysmal. 7 sacks this season so far, second fewest in the league. Only worse is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, Jonathan Joseph, garbage. The entire secondary, besides Kevin Byard and Malcolm Butler sometimes, is garbage. Best players on the field are their linebackers, and they can't do everything. Now, Tannehill also had a pretty bad interception in the red zone. That's on him. But if you look at the stats, they pretty much played neck and neck with the Bengals offensively. They had 100 more rushing yards, slightly less passing yards, but it was all on par. The defense just does not know how to get off the field.
Yeah, and a big part of the Titans' defense, underperforming, was Jonathan Joseph, and now he's off the team. Honestly, I'm shocked that it took this long. He's been a liability every week in coverage. He's getting absolutely toasted. Another signing that, did not go well for the Tennessee Titans is Vic Beasley. NFL's sack leader in 2016, but he hasn't come near that level of production since. Now he's off Tennessee. I don't know where they're going to get a pass rush from. Their defense has been struggling. And, winning cures everything, right? So the Titans, they've been giving up a lot of points. I mean, they went wire to wire with the Jaguars week 1, right? So they barely came away from that. They gave Gardner Minshew his best game of the season, but it wasn't really a narrative because Titans were winning. Now that they're not, whole different story.
When you look at the stock market and markets like that, sometimes you hear about these things called a bubble. In sports, you get them too sometimes. Last year, for example, you saw it with the Baltimore Ravens. Everyone was saying, oh, the Ravens can't be stopped. The offense is too dynamic. Lamar Jackson can't be tackled. They have an MVP on their team. And everything seemed to be going good. I feel like people also ignored a fatal flaw in their team. That their MVP quarterback, their superstar, couldn't throw the ball outside the numbers in warm weather. Now you get into January, and it got even more amplified. The Tennessee Titans went man-to-man on the outside, stacked the inside, and you started seeing these fatal flaws. The problem with bubbles in sports is sometimes you realize that there's a massive problem while it's too late. The Titans right here had a trade deadline. They didn't trade for any pass rushers. They acquired one more cornerback, and they're hoping with the addition of Adoree Jackson and King that'll solve the problem. But here is where my concern is. Adoree Jackson and King aren't going to be able to cover these wide receivers for 8-9 seconds. If there's no pass rush and there's no pressure on the quarterback, the secondary is going to look just as flawed as they were before. I know Brian was a fan of the cutting of Jonathan Joseph. I didn't really understand it because if he's at the 4 on your depth chart, he's not really going to get cooked by 1 and 2 receivers. He's not his fault when he signed with the team that he was slotted in and covering some really good receivers. But like I said, without a pass rush, without anything that is coming at the quarterback, I don't care who's playing quarterback corner on your team. I don't care if you have 2 Stephon Gilmores. I don't care if Darrelle Revis from his prime comes back. No one's going to be covering these receivers for that long with the time this quarterback has in the pocket.
I really thought this defense in particular, the Titans, was turning a corner after they had that great showing against Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big Ben has 4 interceptions this year. 3 of them came against the Tennessee Titans. I thought they confused them. I thought they played well. And it's quite frankly disappointing that they haven't been able to sustain that level and effort of play since. But going back to the Steelers here, they're for real. They are the NFL's only undefeated team. They, I think, are the most complete team in the NFL. They actually have a defense to go along with their offense, unlike, say, a team like the Chiefs, who have to outscore everyone to win, or Baltimore, who needs to shut you down to let Lamar run all over you. I think no one wants to face the Steelers right now. I do think they are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Their wide receiving core is stacked. Their running backs are healthy. And even though they've had some injuries and departures along that offensive line, the level of play that they're maintaining, great, amazing. My only issue is I really think they're trying to force Deontay Johnson down our throats. I don't understand why James Washington doesn't get more looks, but hey, that's me. Chase Claypool, though, love him. Wish the Jets got him instead of trading for Denzel Mims and Ashton Davis. Oh my God. But yeah, Steelers. For real, man.
Chase Claypool is so overrated. He had 1 game with 3 touchdowns, and everyone thinks he's a god. He literally hasn't done anything since that game. Absolutely nothing.
The guy's the 3rd, 4th receiver on the team. Well, he's not going to be putting up 3 touchdowns every game, man.
He should have at least 3 catches a game and maybe over 40 yards a game, but he doesn't.
He has 10 over the last 3 games, man. Check your math.
4 catches a game.
I feel like we're a little split on this Chase Claypool nonsense, and the podcast is getting a little away from us because of it, because I don't think anyone listening to this really cares about Chase Claypool, but I thought they made good debate podcasting. I wish we were debating stuff that's a little more fun, like, who's the best receiver on the Titans? Is it Corey Davis or A.J. Brown after those Pro Football Focus ratings? But let's get back to a real question that has been weighing on me. With the Steelers at, 7-0 now? I don't think that this is going to be a team that goes undefeated. But I know last week we had a theme of talking about the Jets and how bad they are. And now we've just had a theme about talking about the Steelers and how good they are. So I'm going to pose a question to both of you guys, and then I'll share my thoughts of what happens first. Do the Steelers get a loss first, or do the Jets get a win first?
Got to go with Steelers here, and they're going to get a loss before the Jets get a win. This team is a joke. It's an absolute atrocity, embarrassment. Might be a JV high school team. They've played, 2 halves of good football in 8 games this year. Yeah, I mean, they're not winning a game. Not with Adam Gase.
I'd have to agree with Dow Dow on this one. Adam Gase, abysmal coach. They got Mr. Bountygate on the other side calling defensive plays. The team is riddled with unnecessary roughness, unsportsmanlike conduct, personal fouls. This team cannot win this year. If they do, it has to be in the next 2 weeks. And if they get blown out by New England, it is game over. 0-16, number 1 overall pick incoming.
I think I'd agree with you guys if it wasn't for what the Miami Dolphins did last year. I think they started the same way. They started around 0-7, and we all know the story about them before the season trading Laramie Tunsil and trading Ryan Tannehill in the offseason. And I think that they were my best or the best shot I've seen preseason going 0-16 in quite some time. I know the Browns did it a few years earlier, but really on paper, I don't think anyone thought they were going to complete an 0-16 season. The Jets, you hear a lot of people saying this is an 0-16 team, and I just think the likelihood of it is so unlikely. Now, obviously, on the same hand, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers going undefeated. I think that's highly unlikely too. But just the way the schedule maps out for the Jets and the way the schedule maps out for the Steelers the next 3 weeks have 3 really easy wins. And the Jets go against a little bit softer of a schedule, as well as their coach and their quarterback playing for their lives. I don't think people realize, for Sam Darnold especially, 1 or 2 wins, how far that's going to take him in his career if he gets them out of that number 1 spot. So the Jets, and especially Sam, are playing for a lot moving forward. Speaking about playing for a lot, the boys last week with our best bets going 2-0. We had the Steelers +3. They ended up beating the Ravens, and I think we were both even in agreement that if you wanted to take the money line there, that they were the better team and they had the better chance of winning. But anytime you get a better team with points, I think, you just take your money and you're happy with it. And then we had taken the over in the Bills game, and I think they cleared it by 3 points. The only thing we missed on was the Cowboys. And not to make any excuses, but I do love making excuses. We were under the impression that there was a good chance Andy Dalton was playing. We recorded this on Wednesday, and Andy Dalton wasn't officially ruled out. But we will take that as a loss. We are 2-0 in our best bets, and we are 0-1 in our upset of the week, which would bring us to 2-1 gambling last week. Now we're going to move forward to this week's bets, and I'm going to pass it along to Pat, who has all the numbers and the stats to get you guys a couple bucks in the weekend.
We're going to start with the Washington football team against the New York football Giants. We're going to take the over 42.5 points in this game. This year, Washington is 3-4 on over-unders. Giants are 3-5, both under 500. 2 negatives always equal a positive. This is going to be an easy over. I'm talking 50, 60 points scored.
Our spread of the game of the week, which is the second leg of our best bets of the week, would be 10.5 points for the Carolina Panthers against the Chiefs. I think when you get a team with a double-digit spread in the NFL, it's very hard to lay off of them. A lot of people like running on the Chiefs because they're the sexy team, but what the Panthers do really well is they run the ball. Christian McCaffrey is most likely going to be back this game. You have Teddy Bridgewater there, who's a solid game manager. And to top it all off, you have the Kansas City Chiefs, who love running the game. As long as this score stays low and the clock keeps moving, I find it really difficult for any team to pull away with a 10.5 point lead. I know last week we were able to take the best team with points. This week it's just not on the cards. You're not going to have a better team getting points like you got the Steelers. So we're going to take a safe play and play, the Panthers with 10.5 points. Don't love this pick as much as I love the Steelers pick, but I am fairly confident that this is also a good pick. Now moving forward to our upset game of the week. The rules on this, just for anyone who's wondering, is it has to be plus 200 or better. So we're not able to take a lot of plus 175s, which you saw this week a lot. We are really limited in those games. So this time we are taking the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Texans at plus 240. I do like the Jaguars in this game a lot. I think they're playing for a lot. The Texans, you saw J.J. Watt even in the news recently talking about how he's not really interested in staying with the Texans if they're continuing to rebuild. They don't really have a head coach. There's really no direction going on over there. So, although I do think the Texans have a better chance of winning this game, of course, to get basically a 3-1 payout on a win for the Jaguars is certainly worth a couple bucks and is certainly worth making a small parlay around. Speaking of parlays, if you were to put $10 on the 3 games we gave you, it would get you a $116 payout, which is a little bit less than last week. However, last week we did take the Cowboys plus 330, which was a very big spread, so obviously the spread's going to get pulled down a bit. But I think it's certainly worth the $10 gamble. And if you wanted to hedge somewhere, you could always hedge that $10 on one of the really easy games. Maybe even put some money on the Cowboys to get absolutely walloped by the Steelers. If you want to just make up your $10, you just take the money line there. Probably 30 to win 10 or whatever it is and win. But anyway, thank you for listening to the show. Hope you guys have a great week watching football. And look forward to talking to you guys next week. Take care. And tighten up.